For our first story, it has to come from Talensi, of course, and the ruling National Democratic Congress, the NDC candidate, has won the by-election in Talensi in the Upper East region. Well, BT Baba will now replace Robert Monsori, who resigned to take up a role as a chief. He managed to win the seat with 10,366 votes, representing 42.31% of total votes cast, while his closest contender, Thomas Woni of the opposition NPP, only managed some 6,845 votes, that is 27.94%. Our Upper East regional correspondent Albert Sorry has been our man on this beat, and we're going to be speaking to him right now over the telephone. So hello Albert, sorry if you can hear me. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yeah, Albert, I've got to say congratulations to you, because once again you've done it. You were all over yesterday, so we appreciate the hard work. But tell us the mood in Talensi morning after the elections.
Well, there wasn't so much jubilation last night, and today I haven't so much as moved around the constituency, so I can say what is happening all over the place, but it's been calm. There aren't any issues at all as far as the mood is concerned.
But take us back to some of the major highlights yesterday when voting was underway.
Well, the major highlights will be a few pockets of violence in some of the areas. The first incident I heard about was a gentleman who was arrested for allegedly showing a dummy ballot paper around to people. He was picked up by the police, and we followed that up to the district police station. The police would not speak. We were there when a group of about 6 young men came to the place demanding the release of this gentleman, because for them, they thought it was unfair for the police to arrest him when some other people they heard about had actually been seen with cutlasses and other weapons, and all the police did was to take the weapons and allow them to go. So it led to some agitation in front of the Talensi District Police Station, and the police had to drive all of us. They had to drive these young men, including we, the media people who were there at the time, a little away from the police station. So that was the first incident. Eventually, these young men went away. Then I had to follow up on another incident of warning shots allegedly being fired in one community called Gorogo, where we're told that some boys had gone there and had a confrontation with the police. Initially, the name I heard about those boys was that they were called the Azoka boys, who had had a confrontation with security people, and some warning shots were fired. I got to the community, there was no sign of the incident, but then speaking to the residents, what they told me was that these people were wearing green shirts with security written on the back of the shirt. Now, in the course of my rounds, I had sighted a group of people dressed like that, except I didn't see what was written on the back of the shirt. And these community members at Kuroko were complaining that these people, after they had that confrontation with the police and the warning shots were fired, they had left a little bit of panic in the community, and they were still hanging around when the community members knew that these people were not, government security officials, and they were asking why the military and the police would allow them to continue to hover around in their community, and that they wanted them to leave. So that was the other incident. But the one I witnessed was when violence broke out in front of the MPP's constituency office. I had gone to charge my equipment at a place nearby. While I was there, I heard some something like gunshots. So I quickly came out together with some other people to see what was going on, and we saw some young men running towards us in the direction, from the direction of the MPP constituency office. So we quickly picked up our equipment and got there. By the time we got there, in less than 3 minutes, there was a whole lot of commotion going on, We saw some macho men holding sticks, some of them holding metals, some of them wielding talisman in the air, and having confrontations with the security people who were trying to control them. Initially, we didn't know what was going on. Now, there was this vehicle which was parked, a Pajero vehicle. All tires were flat, and they had destroyed it, broken the windscreens and all. So we tried to find out from the eyewitnesses who were there at the time of the incident. That they said that there was this group of people. Again, they mentioned Azoka boys, that they were in 2 pickups. And as soon as they got to the MPP's constituency office, they fired some shots into the air. And surprisingly, they alleged that the security people who were stationed there at the time did nothing to prevent these people who were firing the shots. And so the youth of the MPP who were also there at that time decided on their own to do whatever they could to, fight back. And it was in the process that they damaged this vehicle, which was a third one behind the 2 other pickups that they said were carrying the Azoka boys in them. So it was a whole lot of commotion. The MPP youth, these macho men who I don't know who they were all charging at the security people. And occasionally it will get so violent that everybody will have to run helter-skelter. At a point, even the police had to fire tear gas in order to get people off the road because, they announced with their van that everybody should move out, and these macho men would not even listen. So they had to, at a point, fire the tear gas in order to get people off the road. Eventually, they managed to get the situation under control. They managed to get the thing under control, and the MPP leadership, specifically Kamaldeen Abdullahi, the Nasara coordinator, had to call the youth together and tell them, look, go back to the polling stations because that is where the voting is taking place. Okay. That is the place where our fate will be decided.
Sure. Albert, I tell you what, we'll continue with this conversation. Just stay on for me because I've also heard the Bolga Bulldogs. So we'll talk about that. Just hang on a bit for me. We've heard one of the candidates in this particular by-election is contesting the results already.
And we have Dr. Michael Wambioto on the line. He was the candidate for the PNT. A very good morning to you. Now, why are you contesting the results?
Yeah, good morning to you and good morning to all your viewers.
Good morning.
I am contesting these results based on the fact that there was massive intimidation, massive corruption, massive bribery, and even I would say that to a very large extent, the membership of those who were involved, officials involved, were not practicing, actually working according to the law. They were doing things for their various political parties in there, but they were standing as officials. And that marred the entire election. In fact, I'm a little bit confused. Besides, I also believe that the results declared, particularly in some of the main sections of the constituency, were not the true results. They were doctored before the declaration. And I want to believe that even the results are recounted ballot by ballot box, there will be a difference. I am not saying that I should have been the winner, but I think that there should have been a fairer result than we have now.
Especially on the subject of the results, polling station by polling station, did you have your agent also in those polling stations, and what numbers were they giving you that is at variance with what by the constituency was collated and approved?
You see, having agents and then not having agents, sometimes there's no difference. Because these people managed to infiltrate my agent's camp. And how they did it.
I don't get you. You were saying that your agents were working against you?
No, not exactly. I am saying that they might have done something else within the police. Look, you see, maybe it is declared that this person has had 10 votes, And it is not only 10. It is not 10 that is written on the paper. And some, to be very frank with you, some of them were too young. They were the youth, and the kind of intimidation that took place in the constituency. Your correspondent just gave you the details. It was just an eyesore.
Well, we saw on the sidelines the attacks and the fisticuffs between supporters of the two main parties, etc. But we're talking about in the voting process. We're told that everything was smooth. We didn't have those commotions happening around the polling stations. So that's why I'm asking you, what numbers did your agent give you, and those numbers that they reported to you in your center? Was it different from what was declared at the centers at the end of the day? That's what I meant.
You know, as I said, the constituency is assumed to be divided into 3 zones. And I want to believe that one of the zones, the results were not very accurate.
Because you are not speaking to facts. And I believe that we also need to do the communication to our audiences elsewhere, wherever we may find them, based on facts that you are also providing us, and then we can relay that.
That is what I'm telling you. I am saying
you're saying it's your belief. It's as if it's a hunch.
No, I'm not saying belief. I believe that, please. I'm telling you, I'm saying it is assumed. It is assumed that the constituency is divided into 3. We have the eastern, the central, and the west. These are assumptions because there's no actual demarcation written there, the west-south kind of thing. But it is assumed, in the minds of the people that it is divided into this. And I'm saying that if you look at one of the sections, the results that came up,
they seem to have been massaged. Let me supply the word for it. They seem to have been massaged. Is that not what you want to say?
Exactly.
Okay. And I'm asking you that, granted that they were massaged, on what premises can you base your argument? Is it just by assumption, or you have real fact that gives indication that, well, at the end of the polling day, this was declared, but that's what you're...
No, not at the end. It was even during the time of elections. The agents complained several times of intimidation, complained several times of biases. And even, look, there were some people who were not agents, they were not EC members, but they were found in the center of the election area and directing people how to vote. And that is what I'm telling you. I am telling you that, look, to be very frank with you, those results that we have there, if not because of some few individuals, I mean, they would have even been worse than the way they are for some of us. For myself, for the MPP candidate, I am telling you the truth. You see, to be frank with you, I am not saying that I deserve to be the winner. No. What I'm saying is that I deserve the fair result.
Okay.
And I'm telling you the truth. I am telling you based on fact, based on what I saw, based on my experiences on the ground. Not based on any assumption or whatever somebody has told me. My people reported consistently. I reported consistently to the security.
So, Dr. Wamiogo, my name is Mamavi. Let me ask you the very last question. How far do you want to take this?
Well, my legal team is looking at it, and they will advise me in the very nearest future.
Okay. We want to say thank you for your time. We wish you the very best. That's the PNDC candidate. He actually came third and was quite close to that of the NPP. So he polled 6,836. And the NPP had 6,845. So the difference.
Okay, Albert, do we still have you on the line? Okay, Albert's line has dropped.
Yeah,
we'll try and get it because we want to know. Usually, for example, Codeo will tell you, and the other monitors will tell you the election was not peaceful because of the commotions and the disagreements and all the things that happened. But during the process of election, did you find somebody stuffing in extra ballot papers? Was the voting that was recorded? That was what was recorded in the ballot book more than the registered voters or those who turn up and things like that. Yeah. Those conclusions will give you the indication that it was rigged or things like that. But when you have difficulties on the side and they don't affect the general process of voting,
Yeah. We'll have a lot of conversations on AM Talk as well on this. How is social media contributing to our elections? 2016 will be a very interesting period, really, especially during the time when we're voting. Because yesterday, even before the final results was released, we had so many things on social media, and you would easily believe it. But let's move on to other stories, because we've got lots of things happening as well. And an indefinite strike by state attorneys yesterday forced the adjournment of cases at the country's court. And the prosecutors, mainly at the Attorney General's Department, took the decision to protest what they describe as poor conditions of service. Boakye monitored events at the courts and reports.
One of the strike by state attorneys, and already the impact is being felt. Many of the courtrooms here, although have been functional, have been forced to adjourn cases involving the state. A number of the lawyers I've been speaking to have been expressing their frustration.
When a trial delays unduly, it impacts negatively on the accused person if ultimately they are acquitted and discharged. You know, there are a lot of legal consequences when somebody has been prosecuted for all the wrong reasons and is acquitted and discharged. It can also lead to judgment debts. But, well, our colleagues are also lawyers. They have their concerns, they have their terms of engagement. And we believe that the state should do things quickly so that these people who are already in custody will know their fate.
I think that most cases will not go on, you know, with the state attorney's involvement in a case. It means that the case, in a way, is a high-profile case. So if the case is not going on because the state attorney is not in court, and the state attorney is not in court because they are on strike, then I think that so many cases will suffer the losses.
At the Registrar General's Department, however, work is moving on smoothly. This department has some 16 attorneys whose job is to append their signatures to documents for business registration and marriage registration, for example. Some of the patrons here tell me they've not had any interruptions at all.
Yeah, I actually came here to submit the form to register a sole proprietorship. So I just came to submit the form and I was asked to come next week for the certificate. Yeah, that's the only thing that I came to. Actually, I downloaded the form, I filled it before I came here. So when I came, I already submitted it.
So you didn't have any difficulty at all?
Oh, not at all. I didn't have any difficulty.
Maybe in the future, yes. But that's because I'm only checking the name. So it's not going to be, my activity is not going to be affected by the strike action.
And I want you to give me a clear idea of what exactly you came to do here today. I mean, processes you went through and all that.
Now, before you register a company, a partnership, a sole proprietorship or whatever, you need to check out the name. If in the opinion of the register of companies or the registrar, the name is not acceptable, you cannot register. So you have to get a clearance that the name is okay before you can use it. So that's exactly what I came to do today.
Clearly, the situation could worsen if the state attorneys remain on strike. Boakye for Joy News.
Meanwhile, the Association of State Attorneys, they have vowed to continue their strike until government provides documentary evidence of its commitment to address their concerns. This was after a meeting between executives of the association, government and stakeholders at the Flagstaff House on Tuesday ended in a deadlock.
According to the president of the association, they are tired of the many unfulfilled promises made by government and are demanding documentary evidence of its commitments. Over 150 lawyers at the Attorney General's office started an indefinite strike following unsuccessful meetings to address their conditions of service. They are demanding a salary increase and a harmonization of their salaries and benefits.
We are just coming from the meeting. We have high-power delegation from finance for the first time. And we had the chief of staff, the fair wages, executive secretary, etc. And for the first time, we were told by the Ministry of Finance that they are going to satisfy our demand. We said we will not take any promise, so we want commitment. They have just told us that. They requested that we call off the strike. We said no, we will not call off the strike, so we have commitment. So they promised us that they will do it. What we are asking for is not one. It's not only harmonization. We have other issues. For instance, we are not on pension scheme. It is a very serious issue. It's a criminal offense under the laws of Ghana. Another serious issue is that we have not been paid for a long time our leave allowance, fuel allowance, clothing.
Exactly how many month arrears are we talking about?
Now, beginning with fuel allowance, we're talking about 6 months. This fuel allowance is supposed to help us perform our duties. Even those who do not go to court run other errands. This allowance is outstanding for 6 months. And we have to pay for fuel from our pocket. We also have to receive allowances in clothing, which has also not been paid. It's outstanding for this.
The association also lamented the lack of logistics at their offices to work effectively, coupled with poor working conditions over the past 3 years.
And we are also working under very serious dehumanizing conditions of service at the office. Logistics that are lacking in the office. We have the computers that are absent or broken down. We do not have toners, A4 sheets, photocopiers. We have to work on our laptops. After that, you have to go to the commercial places to use some money to do the printing, the photocopying. And when you leave the office, you go with your laptop. The data is lost. We have been on the quiet because we do not want to speak to the public about it and do all that. And it has had a very serious economic implications on our pocket. And we have gotten to a breaking point. Our backs are breaking and we can no more bear. And this is why we have come out.
The association says already several state attorneys have tendered in their resignation letters. Its president says if the situation is not properly managed, the consequences could be dire for the state. Matilda Pamaga, for Joy News, Accra.
The once popular or rather controversial TV license fee is making a major comeback, with the chief collector of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation determined more than ever to ensure they make as many TV owners pay as possible.
Effective August 1, which is just about 3 weeks away, all those who own, well, sets, including myself, will be required to pay about 36 Ghana cedis a year and 60 Ghana cedis a year, respectively, for those with 2 or more sets. A section of the public Joy News spoke to said they were not very much excited about the news, and we'll bring you what he told Derek Aposam.
TV license fees were quite popular in the early 90s when it was introduced as a means to resource the state broadcaster at a time when it was the only television channel available on the country's airwaves. It was common to hear of people being prosecuted for refusing or failing to pay their license fees. There were also stories about how far people would go to avoid paying what used to be the equivalent of 30 pesos now. But that was a long time ago, and GBC is asking for a whole lot more now. Domestic users who have just 1 TV set will pay 36 Ghana cedis per annum. If you have 2 or more sets, you will pay 60 Ghana cedis per annum. Dealers in TV sets are required to pay 5 Ghana cedis per month, while commercial license users will pay 3 Ghana cedis monthly. Collection was a major problem when it was first introduced, with many suggesting it probably cost GBC so much more to collect than what eventually came in. But the Director General, Major Retired Albert Donchebe, says the state broadcaster has figured out how to crack that problem this time round.
Thankfully, technology has made a number of advances. The most important one is the fact that, as you know, Ghana is supposed to have gone digital by now. We haven't, but we will. Sometime early next year. Now, the digital platform is an interesting addition in the sense that it provides us with the opportunity to collect TV license fees via a decoder, and we intend to do that. But that is not the only method that we're going to use. We are already in discussion, finalizing agreement with a number of banks. We are looking at even the money transfer on mobile, what you call mobile money.
Members of the public are, however, not impressed and are kicking against it.
This is a sensible nonsense, because already what we watch for our TV talk, apart from HIV, then they go sit down and say TV license. Who will go can collect that money, sir?
for me, I don't see any benefit in the TV license they're introducing. The reason is that I don't really know the kind of programs they're showing now on TV. Like at first, you can see that they have a lot of educative programs and even which shows much of morals. But now you only see of kissing, romance.
TV license it be something will be useless because now self we dey inside doom so we down to they can't take TV license. What program quality they show for TV top way for pay license? Me I will use my money go buy TV. Then no can't talk say I for pay TV license. Why be that way they give the money I go buy the TV?
Major retired Don Chebe, however, says the new regime, which is an initiative with the blessing of the National Media Commission, ensures private broadcasters get a share of the revenue.
That is the reason why in the current regime, the TV license fee is not a GBC, it's a sole GBC beneficiary. GBC is going to share with broadcasting stations like yours because we recognize that currently private stations undertake some public service broadcasting. That is the reason. That is the only reason why we are sharing with.
Despite the protestations, members of the public do not have much of a choice as the license fee is backed by law. Persons who fail to comply could be fined heavily or jailed for a year.
Oh, it means we just have to pay, right, for the state broadcaster to be running. Yeah. Well, in a related development, the Ministry of Communications has finally nailed down its agreement with KNET, a Ghanaian-owned entity contracted to migrate the country's broadcast networks onto a digital platform along with the rest of the world.
Well, speaking of the signing ceremony here in Accra, the minister said the project is structured to be executed in 9 months, while a further 3-month period has been set to address all teething problems that may arise as a result of the migration. Communications Minister Dr. Edward Omaniboama is hopeful the move will also end up creating jobs.
The over $80 million contract with KNET, according to the minister, will be funded with proceeds from the auction of the spectrum to be released following the migration. Dr. Omaniboama said all necessary approvals have been secured and that the project will eliminate the need for loans either concessionary or commercial to ensure certainty in the implementation process. He said the decision to settle on KNET, a Ghanaian-owned entity, is to promote local capacity, adding, especially when they are offering to do it for $13 million less than the previous contractor.
The contract being signed this afternoon for the DTT network solution is $13 million cheaper than the previous contract. The engagement of KNET Limited, a fully owned Ghanaian entity, amplifies government's resolve to develop local capacity. The payment for the contract sum of $82.3 million will be made from the proceeds of the auction of the spectrum to be released following migration of broadcasters from analog to digital, referred to as digital dividend. Emerging broadcasters will have the added benefits of a shorter turnaround time for investment returns and a substantially reduced annual operational cost. Broadcasters on a digital platform will be judged no longer on coverage, but on quality of content and branding.
He said in government's bid to carry all stakeholders along, a comprehensive public education and awareness program will be carried out nationwide.
The Ministry and the Digital Broadcasting Migration Committee have prepared comprehensive public education and awareness materials for the migration from analog to digital, and we'll be distributing them to you. The campaign will be rolled out. We would like to call on all broadcasters to assist the Ministry and the National Communications Authority to sustain the public education and awareness campaign when it commences. This is to ensure that we educate and carry along all stakeholders during the migration process. We encourage all broadcasters to voluntarily campaign on the need for the transition from analog to digital and the benefits to be derived. The Digital Broadcasting Migration Committee has developed some basic Q&As aimed at answering some of the fundamental questions on the migration.
Chief Executive Officer of KNET, Ken Ansan, assured his outfit's readiness to deliver within the stipulated time frame.
The requirement of the contract is to provide an infrastructure for digital terrestrial television, and that is what we are going to deliver. Yeah.
It is expected that free-to-air television signals will operate within a 12-month period, while the terrestrial network will be complemented with satellite services within the protocol framework to ensure that all areas are adequately served with digital TV signals. Upon completion of the network rollout, digital and analog transmissions will run concurrently for a period not exceeding 1 year. It is also expected that over 7,000 jobs will be created over the next 2 years in the STB sector. Ridwan Karim Dini Osman, Joy News, Accra.
Well, we'll see how that goes. Well, that's what we call a digital migration when it comes. We're told we're going to have a plethora of channels, and then you're going to have a lot more choice than currently you have on your free-to-air, so to speak. Now, it sounds like something from a witty advert, and one of them is coming up.
Yeah, people climbing tall trees to just make and receive calls. You're thinking, is this happening in Ghana? Well, in Akedewaso, copywriters do not need to create this reality. In fact, they don't even have to pay for it. People actually climb trees with their mobile phones just to place phone calls. Here's our colleague, Haruna Isif Womponi's report.
In the Etiwa district of the eastern region lies the town of Akedewaso. 1,000 people live here, and none of them have functional mobile phone networks. The young boys on this tree are not searching for fruits, but the ever-elusive network connection. All 5 mobile phone service providers have practically zero reception here. Even when precariously perched on a tree, voice clarity is nil. Residents are understandably worried about continuing to live in this communications black hole.
In case of any emergency, we will be unable to call for help. All the existing networks don't work here. We need the government's intervention.
We have to climb trees in order to make and receive calls. It is absurd. We need help.
Chief of Akedewaso community, Berima Odeidria II, says he does not understand why a big town like Akedewaso doesn't have network connections. He hopes the Ministry of Communication will listen to the plight of his subjects and do something about the situation.
This big town doesn't have access to telecommunication network. We are cut off from the rest of the country. We are appealing to the appropriate authorities to come to our aid.
All efforts made in getting in touch with the network providers to respond to the issue prove futile. Haruna Yusuf Wumpuni's report from the Eastern region.
At least when crime is a problem in the community, it means that they can make a lot more calls. But talking about crime, the police seem to have a caution.
And I just wanted to say that this is a big challenge to all of you telcos, MTN, Tigo, Airtel, Vodafone. What's the other one?
Glow.
Yeah.
Glow.
All of you, please fix this one. But buyer beware. That's the latest caution from the police about merchandise such as home theaters, wristwatches, mobile phones without charges and other valuables being offered for sale, often off the streets by sometimes very, very suspicious characters.
And a warning from the Accra Region Police Command is that you could be prosecuted for patronizing such sale. That's patronizing stolen items. It follows the arrest of 2 of 5 armed robbers who went on rampage at Abamfrom here in Accra last weekend.
Isaac Kenye, a 25-year-old Tyler from Togo, and David Aheto, also a 25-year-old watchman from the Volta region, were arrested on June 3 and 4. They, together with 3 others, are said to have raided more than 10 homes in the Amamfrom community, robbing residents of valuables and injuring about 8.
I
was asleep when I heard gunshots. Then while inside, they broke down the door. They had guns and they managed to take away 700 cedis.
Me say, oh, Jesus.
When they took the money, they asked for more. Because I didn't have, they wanted to sleep with me. But when I took off the cloth, they inflicted my back with a cutlass.
There were others, however, who were not so lucky.
The investigation also revealed that 3 victims of the robbery attack were raped at gunpoint.
Accra Region Police Commander DCOP Christian Tete Yohono described how one of the suspects, David, was arrested getting ready to embark on one more expedition at Amanfrom. He was said to have been found in possession of some of the items used in the first robbery: a single-barrel gun, 60 rounds of live ammunition, locally manufactured pistols, face mask, wig, and hand gloves. Isaac, on the other hand, was arrested in the process of selling the stolen items at the Liberian refugee camp at Bujumburam.
The police is cautioning members of the public to desist from patronizing items such as mobile phones, laptops without chargers, iPad, digital cameras, flat screen televisions, home theaters, wrist watches, and similar variables, which are usually offered for sale by suspicious characters at low prices.
The police, meanwhile, is appealing to the public to volunteer information that will help them arrest the other robbers.
The general public is also advised to be extra vigilant in their neighborhoods and without hesitation report the slightest suspicion of strange characters to the police for prompt action.
And before we go, let's do a last one. One person is feared dead following the collapse of a bridge at Ayikai Doblo near Amasaman here in Accra.
Well, an articulated track plying the road sank into the Denso River after the bridge caved in under its weight. Personnel from the police service and the National Disaster Management Organization were at the scene of the accident. Here's Derek Ecclesham's report. He spoke to DSP Elvis Bawa Sadongo.
Residents say last Saturday's callous killing of Said Kadir was perpetrated by suspected robbers who mistook a radio set and copy of the Holy Quran in the man's sack for money. Reports suggest it was the third shooting incident in the area in the last 2 weeks.
Normally these type of bridges are constructed with weight limitations. I am suspecting that this tipper truck loaded with chippings has exceeded the weight required to use this particular bridge. And so you see that the bridge caved in right in the middle. You know, this bridge doesn't have support in the center of it. It just runs straight across the river. So it caved right in the middle. And it kept sinking gradually until the tipper truck is completely submerged now. During the process, the driver and one other person escaped. And I think one of his mates is trapped in there and is under the water as we are speaking. If he's under the water for the past 2.5 hours, it's very difficult to say what the situation is, but at least common sense will tell all of us that he's feared dead.
And that's it for the news. We have the best newspapers in the studio, and then we'll bring you what the highlights are on the front and back pages of those newspapers.
Okay, just before we go, shame on all of you who buy phones in traffic for 50 cedis and 30 cedis and 20 cedis and still beat down the price. Most of them, in fact, all of them, stolen phones. So shame on you if you engage in that. We'll come back with the newspapers. Please stay with us.
We'll be right back.